Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Upside Swings NBA Draft Podcast, the podcast, The High Ceiling. I'm your host, Bryce Hendricks, joined as always by the great Cooper Klein, and we're here to talk about some forwards. I'm honestly not sure how long this is going to go. I think there's 2.5 guys I really have much to say on, and then the rest is just kind of due diligence, box checking. I hate to say that, but we are kind of at that point where it's like we're going to start getting to some guys where our analysis is going to be fairly short. It's just going to be we kind of like him or we don't. Here's why, without a lot else to say, because that's just, we've said it in the last pod when we were talking about, I can't remember who, but we were talking about someone we didn't like. I think it was me with Christian Anderson when I said this. I was like, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this guy I don't really, have a good opinion of, because it kind of feels like a waste. It's one thing if you're splitting between lottery and first round. It's another trying to split between, true UDFA versus two-way UDFA versus draftable two-way. That's kind of less fun conversation. But I do think there's at least one guy we're going to really like, and then one guy who I need to talk about because I don't really have a great feel for right now on where I'm going to put him on my board. But before we get too into it, Coop, my friend, how you doing?
I am doing great. I am cramming in a bunch of stuff before my trip to Bulgaria. I'm going to visit my friend who goes to law school out there, and I'm going to have the best time ever. But that means that I got to watch a lot of bad basketball before we go. So, but I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Honestly, this was a lot of fun. This, we were talking about it. This is bringing back the whimsy of youth. This episode itself really made me feel joy watching these guys in a way that I haven't felt in a long time.
But I do think that's the place to start. I think Alan Graves is the most upside swings prospect that we've had in quite some time. He's the closest thing to Tari Eason or Leonard Miller that this draft is going to have. Not that he's exactly the same as those guys, but he's similar in that I just have a real excitement about him. I don't know. I actually don't know that I'm going to be crazy high on him. It seems like he's fairly popular and there's going to be some people higher on him than me, but I just found myself really enjoying him. He's a fun story. He goes to Santa Clara. So I do want to say he did not come out of nowhere. He played EYBL. He was it's a big shoe circuit, the big shoe circuit, you could say. But redshirted at Santa Clara, which is not obviously some big time school, though truthfully at this point, one of the better prospect producing mid majors going all the way back to Steve Nash. But in recent memory, Jalen Williams and Brandon Podziemski, both of whom have had good careers, if I do feel like are maybe both a little bit overhated at times. And Jalen Williams had a completely unhealthy year, and I heard people talking bad on his name. It's like he was the second best player on a championship team 2 years ago. But anyways, Alan Graves, red shirts, which is just interesting. It's just, I don't think it was what you were expecting when you hear NBA prospect. And he also came off the bench for Santa Clara. Now, Santa Clara was a good team. This was one of the best teams Santa Clara has had in some time, really since Steve Nash left. This team was better than the Jalen Williams teams at Santa Clara, but just kind of interesting. Now, he's a July 28th, 2006 birthday, so he's 19. He'll turn 20 about a month after the draft. His rookie season will be his age 20 season. From Louisiana. He played in 35 games this year, only started 4, only played 22 and a half minutes a game, averaged 11.8 points on 51.2, 41.3, 75 shooting splits, 6.5 total rebounds, 1.8 assists, 1.9 steals, 0.9 blocks, 0.7 turnovers, and 3.9 fouls. The really exciting stuff is not anything in the box score, really. It's the more advanced stats. 8.5 offensive BPM, 4.2 defensive BPM, total of a 12.7 BPM for a 22-minute per game player. That's very, very good. He had a 58.2 effective field goal rate and a 61.5 true shooting on a 22.4 usage. Those are good numbers. I would not say those are eye-poppingly elite numbers for a WCC player, but good. 13.8 assist rate to 8.2 turnover rate. 2.5 assist to turnover is pretty good if both those are fairly low volume. 5 blocks, 4.9 steal rate, 5 block rate, 4.9 steal rate. Both of those are really, really good. 40.6 free throw rate. Did commit 5.3 fouls per 40, which is not very good. Dunked 21 times. 76 for 120 or 63.3% on close twos, 44.6% on long twos. Did not shoot a crazy amount of threes, 6.7 per 100 possessions, but shot very well, 40.7%. Also shot well from the free throw line. Coop, what do you think of that stat profile, and how do you kind of weigh the weirdness of him being a, bench redshirt freshman for a team that was good, but a mid-major team that ended up being a 10th seed in March? Like how do you kind of weigh all that in your head with, first round prospect?
I think it's really hard, especially because he's like, I think the big thing is like mid-major. You've seen this before with like Tari Eason, where he got pushed to the bench for an LSU team that had a lot of players that had to start over him. And there's a lot about, you just come off the bench. So that way you don't expend all your energy too early. There's a lot of shenanigans there with Tari. But I don't, it's really strange. It's a really strange experience. I actually booted up my first Alan Graves game and I was like, hey, where is he? why is he not on the court? I've seen his name floated about. I've seen people talking about him. I don't know anything about him. I watched the one Santa Clara game in the tournament and I wasn't super, you're flipping through 10 different games in tournament time. And I just didn't really notice he didn't start. And it was really weird. But I do think that impact and talent kind of shines through even with the weirdness. 5.0 block rate, almost a 10 stock rate, combined blocks and steals, pretty low turnover, grabs a bunch of rebounds, finds a way to be efficient, can score multiple different levels. Just a very obvious talent on the stats page. And even with the weirdness, I think very obviously someone worth betting on. So where do you want to start? What do you think is the sell here with Graves?
That's a really interesting question. I think it's defense. I think when I watched him, and it's weird, and this is one of those evals where I'm going to say a lot of like big scouty terms. I just am he's that type of guy. He's harder to paint in broad strokes because truthfully, what he's going to be asked to do in the NBA is not really what he was asked to do in college. In college, he was a 5. He was the backup center for Santa Clara on both ends of the ball, but especially it's important offensively because he was the whatever you want to call it, the point guy and all their chin stuff, their Princeton, zooms and all that stuff. He was the guy making all those reads. And that's just, he's not going to be a true big, but I do think it's defense. It's worth noting versus top 50 comp, the block rate fell way down, but the steal rate stayed pretty high. And I think that's accurate. I think he's more the real bet for him is that he's going to be a really good perimeter defender in kind of a Caleb Wilson way. I kind of think something that's funny that we're going to talk about in this pod is Alan Graves is kind of a little bit of budget Cam Boozer in some ways. And someone we'll talk about later is Baba Miller, who's kind of budget Caleb Wilson. But I actually thought defensively, Graves was way closer to someone like Wilson. So here are some kind of specific biomechanic notes and how I feel like it's going to translate defensively. And then I just kind of want to hear your thoughts in general, Coop. I think the footwork is probably better than he gets to show, especially on wings. The foot speed looks good to me. He was in hedge and in drop a lot. He wasn't really they didn't really switch him on a ton. But I think that had a lot more to do with the starting big, whose name I'm blanking on right now, than it did him. I thought he moved his feet fine. There were multiple times, including against Kentucky or Gonzaga, where he moves his feet with guards and wings really well. There was a time where he got switched on to Davis Vogel, who is not some shot creating prospect, but is definitely an NBA prospect. And he stayed with him plenty fine. He was not a blow by candidate at all. He can't really change direction though. He's kind of trying to U-turn a semi or the Titanic or something. He can really push in one direction well, but he can't change direction particularly well. That is sort of in contrast to someone like Caleb Wilson, whose change of direction was actively really good. But What I mean when I say Caleb Wilson is I think he can move his feet really well on switches, but I don't think he can really get through screens. He does have kind of higher hips, um, uh, but his upper body strength is like elite. Like he has really good. I think his lower body strength is kind of mediocre, but his upper body strength is really good. He can really handle bumps with his chest. His shoulders are strong. He could hand fight with big guys all day. Like something he did a lot was front in the post, which he actually wasn't great at because he didn't have the lower body strength to drive them all the way back. But he was always getting to his fronts because he was really good at winning hand fights. Like he gets away with a lot of kind of dirty tricks, which for me I'm fine with. Like until they start calling him, do it. But he's kind of Draymond Greeny in his ability to like kind of grab a backhand and pull someone away from the ball, and um, you know uh, you kind of grab someone by their hips a little bit and push them out of the way. All that stuff is really good. And then the other thing I would say that's to me really important with his defense is his physical reaction time is insane. Like I actually don't think he's a particularly good basketball processor. I think he's really slow in terms of his ability to diagnose what an offense or a defense is doing, but his physical reaction time is basically instantaneous, meaning that like his ability for his for his brain to tell his hand what to do is like that. And that's why like his hands are probably best in class to me in terms of tip steals, deflections. Like they're just all over the place. And he gets them in weird spots. Like, he's not even like in a deny, but like as the pass is in the air, he just is able to get around someone so quick to get a tip steal, deflection, whatever. Um, and like he's not a great shot blocker in terms of his verticality or even really his positioning, but he is a great shot blocker in terms of being able to react just in time to get the ball exactly where he can get it and not any higher. Um, he's just like his physical reaction time is so good that it makes me also project more defensive upside there, where I'm just like he's gonna figure out whether he needs to get stronger in his lower body or actually he needs to shed weight. My strong guess is that he's actually going to have to shed weight in the NBA and get a little bit skinnier, while still hopefully maintaining some of his strength advantage with his upper body, and be more of like a 3-4 defender than like a 4-5 defender like he is right now. But my thought is, I think there's a world that this guy is like, this is going to sound crazy because there are such worlds, different levels of vertical athletes. But is there a world this is like an Aaron Gordon type defender? I think so. Like, I think he could potentially get to that kind of level where he's not like a great screen nav guy. He's not great on guards, but he could guard guards. Like, he can't, like, even though you wouldn't look at him and think, oh man, that guy's going to stick on a guard. Like, he just kind of does. He just kind of has that type of, physicality to him. And for what it's worth, he's plenty big. Came in 6'7 3/4", so almost 6'9". You probably say 6'9", 7-foot wingspan, 8'10" and a half standing reach, like real 3-4 size, if not like comfortable 4 size. Like, and I think like I'm sure he'll get like some Tobias Harris defensive comps. Like he's just actually way laterally quicker than someone like that, in my opinion, even though he kind of doesn't look it. Does that all kind of feel accurate to you, Coop? Like, or am I way out of bounds? Just tell me how you felt about the defense.
I think he's one of the weirdest defenders we've ever watched. Honestly, the contrast between his like active level of like I want to say like traditional athleticism isn't the right term. Like he's not this crazy run and jump athlete. But then I want to say like aesthetic athleticism, I think is the better term. Like he doesn't appear to be this crazy, crazy athlete. And then compared to his impact as a just like flyer, like he just moves around the court. He is everywhere at all times kind of guy. I think it's just so interesting. It's just a weird contrast that you don't see very often in a player. His hands are just so good. I think every point you made, I pretty much agree with. I think he's the kind of player who has this innate feel for where to be, an innate feel for where to put his hands, how to bother guys, when to bother guys. He's a little too active at the moment. You see it with that 5.3 fouls, and you feel the impact of all those fouls every time he's on the floor, because you're like, oh, he almost got a steal there, but he whacked the shit out of the guy and smacked his arm. Um, he just finds ways to bother every single player on the floor. And I think that's the big thing for me is he just like, it doesn't matter what position you play. If you're a guard, he'll find a way to bother your passing angle. He'll find a way to bother your driving lane. If you're a big, he'll find a way to push you off your spot. If you're a wing or a forward, he'll find a way to like go bother the person who's going to pass to you, or to like cut off the angle and use his arms, kind of bump you a little bit. He's just so unique in so many ways, and you just see the natural feel play out every single time he steps on the floor. I think that's the big thing. He's just very obviously got this feel for how to win basketball games, and it's super, super interesting.
Yeah, I agree with you. There are some concerns defensively. I actually, I'm not really concerned about him being targeted like on the ball at all. I kind of said that. Like I feel pretty confident that he's going to be fine if you're going to try and target him in ISO. I have some concerns about him switching on to centers, like the true blue centers. Despite his upper body strength, like his lower body strength just concerned me a little bit. I thought, you know, like Graham Ike was like able to really seal him out of plays. And Graham Ike is, outlier strong, don't get me wrong. But I'm not confident like in him guarding like a Jokic or something. But someone he can get below, I think he could be okay on. And again, I think specifically with his wingspan, his footwork, I think he can be like shockingly good on guards. It might take time. Like, I'm not saying I expect this year one, but I think there's a chance that like there's a world where he's really good on like your Tyrese Halliburtons of the world, and he can also kind of scale up and guard Jaylen Brown and a Jason Tatum and like those types of guys. That's a really valuable defensive player to me. My concerns are his verticality is just not very good. Like he can't really get up. And again, I don't think he's this crazy diagnoser of things. Like I don't think, even though he's smart, I don't think he's not making the Dalen Swain steals. And I was lower on Swain than you, but like he's not just like, oh, I see exactly what the defense is going to do, I'm just going to go blow it up. That's not really the type of defender he is. And he's late like an okay amount. And even when he's on time, he can't really get vertical against really plus athletes. Like it's just, he's kind of more of a 3 defensively than he is like a 4 right now. In the modern NBA, your 4s are way more like secondary rim protectors and rebounders. Now he can give you the rebounding part, but I don't think he's super effective as a secondary rim protector, nor do I expect that. And that's kind of where I'm like, he's like, I really think what it is in the NBA is he's got to slim down and be a much like more, he's only going to be like, his straight line speed is still not great. And that's the concern for me, is that as I'm saying all this, he reminds me so much of Jake LaRavia and like all the stuff I said about Jake LaRavia. And Jake LaRavia has been an actively bad defender, even though I believe so strongly in him. Now, I still think he's a fine player, and I actually think he gets underrated sometimes. But, that's kind of the concern, is that he's sort of a man without a home, and that it might take some more specific scheme fits for him. But at a certain point, if you can guard, you can guard. And if you can combine being able to guard on the ball with the ability to make some plays away from the ball, I think it's a good place to start. I thought he was a plus rebounder. I thought he really competed there. He has elite hands, not just in terms of like, he has elite hand-eye coordination. And like I mentioned, the quickness of his hands is really good, but his just ability to grab balls is really good. He can just like really snatch rebounds out of the air with pretty impressive consistency and fortitude. He's just a really excellent rebounder. So I think all around he's a really impressive player in that sense, and that kind of transitions me to the offense, where I think the sell for him is, you heard for a long time there was this scouting phrase, dunks and threes, and obviously there's benefits to that, dunks and threes, and Graves did dunk a lot, but I really think the sell for him is offensive rebounds and threes, which is a really kind of fun thing. Coop, you have anything else you want to say on the defense before we hop into the offense?
No, I think he's just a 1-of-1. I think in a lot of ways, and I think that specifically has a lot of value. Um, Being able to bring something unique, like truly unique, to an NBA floor on either end is valuable in and of itself because NBA defenders and offensive players have to adjust to your rhythm, right? It's the reason why a guy like Scotty Barnes is able to be so good. It's like when you watch him, you're like, that's not a traditional superstar, right? In the way that you think of superstars to be. And then you watch him, and you're like, oh, he wins with these funky angles and like insane strength creation. And, I do think that Graves can just kind of like find ways to win. He's got the requisite level of feel. He's got some weird body patterns or like movement patterns. And I think that brings a lot of value in the NBA, even if it's not the most traditional in a lot of ways. And then we can talk about the offense if you're ready. This is a guy. I had to save it till now because the defense, he's very individual, very unique. But this is literally me. This is you're watching Cooper Klein, the basketball player, is Alan Graves on offense. Go up, illegal screen, roll, kind of hard, kind of pop, see what happens, and just find ways to like bully guys. Oh, I'll get into the post. Oh, I'll back you down a little bit. I'll fling you around with my shoulders. Little flip over the shoulder. I'll turn around. He's just got a bag. He can hit some threes. He can dribble well enough. He can get into the short roll. I think he has a really good feel for where he needs to be as a big man, as a roller. He's a good screener. I think he has a good feel for when to slip, when to stick, when to pop, when to roll. Like, he's just really good at reading things. And he follows the angle of where his guard will just very easily be able to put the ball right where he needs it, right? He'll move with you the whole time. If it doesn't work, he'll post up for a second, right back out to set another screen. There's something to be said for a guy who can just do all the dirty work, right? A guy who is not ashamed to go out there and just throw his body into guys and to create advantages for other players. And I think that Graves is really, really good at that. And then because he's one of those guys who's just never out of control. And because he's always rolling, he's just always in offensive rebounding position. Right? He's always under the basket. He's always wrestling with guys to fight and get better positioning. He's always like pushing guys around. I think it's again, it's just, it's a weird skill set, especially for someone who's like kind of defensively a forward. Right? Like, you think of this as like, that should be a 5. This should be a 7-foot guy who's like hyper athletic, who should be able to do these things. It's like, well, here's this 6'8" guy who can do it. I think it's really fun. It's really unique. He knows where to be, knows how to play.
Yeah, I'll kind of give the negative side here first. I do kind of think that the processing issues show themselves. Like, I don't think he's some crazy passer. Like, I think the people that are selling that are would probably sell you some beachfront property in about 30 years. That's just not who he is. Like, he's a good decision maker, but he's not some elite processor. Most of his assists come out of the post, and I don't think he's a good enough post scorer to get post ups in the NBA. That would not be my expectation. In my notes, like with his finishing, so for what it's worth, as a finisher in EYBL, he was horrible. That's a big reason probably why he was so under recruited. This year, he was 67th percentile at the rim, 61.8% field goal percentage, 51.7% on layups, though, is not very good. 50% on runners is nice. 41.7% on 48 hook shots, also very nice. For what it's worth, the finishing did not fall off like crazy against top 50 comps. In fact, it actually went up. The only thing that fell off efficiency-wise was his three-point shooting, which I think is probably fairly fluky. Like, I don't think that really says anything. Other than he got a couple more flaming bags probably against those really good teams. I think, he's going to be a fine assisted finisher. but not. I don't think he can really create much of his own downhill offense. Like he's like, even though he kind of has a bag in certain ways, it's not as a ball handler. He's not, he is kind of like diet Cam Boozer in a lot of ways offensively, but the diet is that, the sugar to Cam Boozer's game is that he can actually like dribble and drive downhill, and that's not, the aspartame for Graves is that he can't really gain advantage as a handler. And again, the lower body strength is a big reason for that. Like he just can't like explode and extend strides. But I think he's pretty good as an assisted finisher, excuse me. Specifically, you mentioned like, I think did you mention this pre-pod, or I can't remember if you mentioned this during the pod. Like there's some Hartenstein here. Like what if Hartenstein was a forward who could shoot? Like the floater, I think, is legit. Like I think he's really going to be like a plus short roll floater shooter, which is kind of impressive. He's an okay enough athlete. Like I don't think he's by any means disqualifyingly bad as a vertical athlete. He's fine. The big thing for me is the shot. Like I think how good he can be offensively is dependent entirely on the shot. For what it's worth, this year, 91st percentile catch and shoot, only 92 attempts, 42.4% field goal percentage, 63% effective field goal percentage. He was actually better when guarded. What I'd say about his jumper is I think it's right now, it's kind of weird. He has this crazy wide base. The ball rises as he sits his hips. And then like once it gets into position, it's all one motion from there. So it's kind of two motion, but kind of not at the same time. I actually think the development point for him will be eventually he's going to be a no dip shooter. Like I think he's just going to get this whole part of it out and he's just going to go right here because it's already like just set point at his head and up. Like that's all the shot part. Like he doesn't need any of this. So I think he's just going to be like, I would actually guess fairly early in his career, he's pulling no dip threes. Majority of his threes are pick and pop first drop, which is good and bad. It's good in that, like, there's some light movement on those. The bat, and also the good is that he shot this well while basically getting 0 corner threes. In the NBA, I'd imagine he gets a fairly high volume of corner threes, which is the easiest type of three to make. The bad is that it's against drop, and he's not really having to like move into them or anything. And lots of times there's not really a closeout. But again, for what it's worth, according to Synergy, he's better when he's contested anyways. My guess is that he's a pretty good shooter. The development point again will be, can he be like an elite shooter? But what I like is that even if he's only okay, he's a really good like crash the glass guy. Like he's just a really good offensive rebounder. He's a really good screener. He's a pretty good cutter. I would not say like an elite cutter, but a good one, especially in more simple scenarios. He's a great ball mover when he has to be. Like he's really mistake averse offensively, which some of that can be bad at times. Like I don't like the turnover rate being this low at times can be a problem, but I thought there was a solid number of like high level connective passes, specifically like quick passes to cutters. Like he'll catch on a pick and pop. He'll look to get into their zoom action. And if that person cuts, like he's throwing it across the lane. So like, it's not like there's 0 high leverage passes on there, but the risk averseness works when you consider him as more of like a 3-and-D possession guy. He's going to move the ball. He's going to go help you get offensive rebounds. I like that he can rebound either around the rim or he can crash, and he can do the modern ideal version of wing offensive rebounding, which is just fly in there and then try and tip the ball somewhere else. Just throw it back behind you and trust your guard to go get it. Like he's really good at that. I just think this is like, truthfully, just like an elite complementary offensive player. Like if he is the level of shooter I think he can be, which is a pretty good one, but probably a sub-elite one, then this is just like a guy. He's just, he's my kind of my fourth guy on offense and my, second or third guy on defense, which is a concern, right? When like that's the type of guy you're talking about, the thresholds there then become the difference between that guy and a guy that's 3% worse is the difference between a starter on a playoff team and someone who's out of the league. So that's always a concern when that's what you're talking about. Like I don't see a ton of crazy development coming here. If there was going to be a star pathway, I think what it is that it becomes like an elite, like mid-range scorer, like bump mid-range jumpers and bump floaters. And like he's using this upper body strength to just like kind of throw guys around sometimes to get not really shots at the rim that can be contested by shot blockers, but his touch is so good that he can just kind of be really elite in that mid-range area while also being a good enough shooter to draw closeouts. If there was going to be like he's a star, it's that kind of stuff. I also think the truth is there's just a lot of untapped here. We've seen him run basically zero ball screen. We've seen him operate handoffs as a shooter and driver like none at all. He basically got zero advantage drives this year. He was almost never catching with already half an advantage. If he's the type of shooter I think he can be, then yeah, like that could absolutely be the type of thing where he really pops because he's just really good at pocket pass lob, or if you're not going to take that away, I'm just going to get to my floater. Or if you're really going to sit in the lap of my big, I'm going to go downhill and do a little baby dunk because he can do his little baby dunks. I think there's a lot of like Julian Champagny here, who obviously I loved, and one of the few major successes of my early time on draft Twitter for me, where I was like very high on him and he turned out to be very good. Just it feels nice sometimes. I can take the occasional victory lap. I beat myself up plenty. But I also think, there's a little bit of like, it's hard to really say. Like, there's not really any Jalen Williams, like obviously the Santa Clara thing that comes to mind, but could he get to like that level of guy, like a third team All NBA? I don't know. Coop, where are you at with like what the upside is? Like, is there like a ceiling here that maybe I'm not seeing or I'm overlooking?
I do think that these guys who play really weirdly tend to have higher ceilings than we perceive them to be, right? Like guys who just kind of find ways to win tend to continue to find ways to win, even if it is in a different way, or the rules change and they have to find a new way to grift. We always see the grifters find a new way to grift in the NBA. I think it's the same kind of idea. And I do think that Graves is sort of this special ilk of weirdos, right? Of like just draft guys who are weird, who are good. I don't know if I had asked you the same question about Jalen Williams, would you have said, I think there's a world where he could be a third team or like even second team All NBA player?
I do think so. Now, the difference is J-Dub played with the ball in his hands all the time. He was the point guard for Santa Clara. And even though we knew he wasn't going to be a point guard in the NBA, like there was some of that to his game. You could see like he has the ball in his hands already all the time, versus that would be different for Graves. I think maybe the person it's more like is let me see here. Let me pull up my handy dandy little big boards from the past and think about maybe who he's a little bit more like in terms of like star development pathways. I mean, is there a world he could have like do we count Jaden McDaniels as a star? Like, there's definitely some Jaden here. Is there a little bit of this is a really high bar, Coop. So forgive me. Could he be like an OG Anunoby type? Is that impossible? Like, that would be obviously a very high bar defensively, and OG is like an insane vertical athlete. So like I don't necessarily want to put that on him, but I don't know. Like those are the guys who kind of come to mind where it's like just kind of these non-traditional stars. Like just, is there even a little bit of the Jalen Johnson, Scotty Barnes type of power forward star where it's like really just rugged? Now, again, he's going to be less of a finisher and more like a mid-range guy than those guys, I think. But I think that's kind of the mold. And there's a little bit of like I don't want to call this the floor, but like the median outcomes being more like your Keegan Murray's or your Tumani Kamaros. Now, those are very different players, but you're kind of understand the level of player I'm discussing. Like, I think that is what makes him interesting. That there is kind of like you can squint and see star, but he doesn't have to be good. So that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know. Are there flaws we're not discussing enough here? Like, because the more I talk about him, the more I'm like, well, he seems pretty bulletproof. I should have him in my lottery. But I entered this discussion like, he's like a first rounder, but not really a lottery type of guy. Is he lottery, Coop? Like, am I tripping?
I do think that the special there is very obvious, right? I think that he's got some special just like funk to him in a very real way. He just wins in unconventional ways. Little fun fact here. We talked about in the Yaxel pod specifically that Yaxel had the most unique stats profile I've ever seen on Bartorvik. He was like 12 points like different from everyone else on Bart. Alan Graves, now the new winner of the most unique statistical profile I've ever seen. He is 15.81 points away from 2012 Jay Crowder at Marquette. And that is his closest statistical comparison. And
Jake
I
Crowder
think
is
that's
low key a
like,
great call. Yeah.
yeah, it kind
Yeah.
of is because Crowder was like undersized, but kind of played the four. He was gritty. He was tough. He was such a unique defender. He ended up really developing into this he just kind of sit off ball and shoot. But he had some stuff whenever he'd get to touch the ball. Like he had some game. Um,
I'll
I
never
do
forget
think
watching him
Graves.
throw Donovan Mitchell a half court lob. That was one of those like NBA players are so skilled moments for me where I'm like Jay Crowder, like 11% usage, stand in the corner. Jay Crowder was throwing half court on the money lobs to 6 foot nothing Donovan Mitchell. Like that's one of my all time basketball memories.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's
sorry,
just
not to
like
interrupt.
no. I mean, that's kind of the thing. Is like I think it's almost like the wing version of when we talked about Clint Capella, and we were like, Clint Capella had all this weird funk to him, right? As a prospect, he'd dribble a little, he'd pass a little, he'd shoot mid ranges a little, but then he comes to the league, and it's like that kind of just shows this baseline competence as a basketball player. And baseline just ability to play and ability to get better. And I do think that that could be the world for Graves, where he just kind of finds the role that the team needs him to play. His grit, his motor, his funk. I think that is what will like keep him on the floor. And then it's also like, yeah, I can run a DHO. Yeah, I can turn the DHO down and then go hit a sick floater and make a nice kick out, and like he can do enough. He just plays basketball to a strong degree, and I do think that is I think that could be the path forward. I do think for me he's going to end up being a lottery player, right? I got to figure out where exactly in my lottery I want to put him, but I mean I think I like him more than Ademara. I think right in above him, and then right below Swain, because I think Swain is I don't know, they're kind of interesting to compare, both as these kind of like truly toolsy forward types,
I like
right?
him better than Swain for what it's worth. Like I think that he is a better basketball player than Swain. I've lowered on Swain a little bit since our pod. I kind of went back and watched some more because I was a little bit uncomfortable with my eval. I don't want to get too into it right now, but like he's the type of guy who like aesthetically has this one great skill, but I'm just not sure he actually affects the game in enough ways. And Graves is kind of the opposite. Where it's like Graves doesn't really aesthetically have any skill that is like obvious, but it's like he just affects the game in so many ways. And again, if you were going to ask me like who's more likely to be a really good NBA shooter, it's Alan Graves 1,000 times out of 1,000. And so yeah, that's who I'm going to bet on. I'm with you. I think I'm going to put Graves in my lottery for what it's worth. He's going to be at the end of it. I'm going to have him at 14 right behind Mara, which means I have 14 guys with a lottery grade. And we haven't even talked about one of my favorite dudes in the draft yet, Henry Vassar, nor have we talked about any internationals. I mean, this is shaping up to be a really strong top of the class. My guess as we continue to go is that we're going to find out that the bottom of the class is not very strong. But I mean, 14 guys with a real lottery grade is something. Um, you know, I just Alan Graves he's like a 20-year-old Yaxel Lindenborg. I mean, a little bit. Now I have Lindenborg higher because Lindenborg is a better athlete. I think he's more versatile. But Graves is the ultimate like just draft some good basketball players. And like, is he good in all the ways that maybe you want? No, but I again like if there is a special here, it's that like his physical reaction times are elite. Like if he put on a little bit of weight, it feels like he should be a left tackle because like his ability to react to what other people are doing is so instantaneous. It's kind of uncanny. It's probably like of like the most micro skills, number one in the class for me. I know that sounds weird, but you know, for like kind of these non-tangible skills, like it might be my favorite. And so I'm with you. I can't put him above Mara or like Mikael Brown or Kingston Flemings or those guys. But he's right in that mix for me. Like I think there's a lot of teams that could benefit from, and I also think truthfully this is me maybe learning a little bit from Cedric Coward. I was too low on Coward. Now obviously it's only 1 year. Like I don't want to berate myself. I think like there's still maybe people were some overblowing who Cedric Coward was after 1 year, but like sometimes don't get obsessed with what role someone is going to play. Just identify if they're good enough at basketball and trust that teams are going to kind of figure it out. Like, you know, Julian Champagny has become like a very switchable plus shooting guy whose other skill is that he just like crashes the glass like crazy. And that's what he does. He doesn't make passes. He doesn't, operate a ton with the ball, but if he's open, he's going to make it at a good enough clip. He crashes the glass and he defends well enough. I think Graves probably even has a higher ceiling as a defender, even though he's a worse shooter right now. That's a lottery guy. So any other thoughts you want to say on Graves here?
Yeah, I think the NBA now more than ever is just so desperate to get five best players on the floor. Get the 5 guys who are the best at basketball and then figure out how to play them together. Figure out how to shove the pieces together until they fit. And someone like Graves, I mean, he's just good, And I do think that I almost have the opposite argument for him as someone like Isaiah Evans, right? Where with Evans or Bryce or these guys, it's like, oh, the fit is just so good that you kind of just draft them, even if, a lot of the other stuff doesn't make sense. Like they're the ultimate 5th starter. They make sense so much in this role that you kind of have to take them. But I do think that at the top of the draft, like once you get outside of like, my lottery is kind of split in I have like a middle break in my lottery between like true lotto talents and fringe lotto talents. Fringe lotto guys, I think you want to think a lot about fit. I think it's like, oh, these are the guys who like make sense with certain lineups and they bring skills that kind of bring everyone together. And for true lottery talents, it's like, just get the guys who know how to play basketball. These are your starters. These are your building blocks. Get those guys, bring them together and figure out how to make them play together. And I think that Graves is that level of player. I think he's that level of special. You talked about him not getting the Dalen Swain steals, but sorry, this goes back to his defense. But his hands are so fast, he'll just kind of lurk sometimes, like really slowly, and then do the slowest passing lane shoot of all time and still get steals. Because his reaction time, his hand speed, it's elite. He just has like some elite bullshit. It's so
He also does have he has an uncanny ability to get steals in passing lanes without taking himself out of place. He's probably best in class at that. Like he is very rarely taking risk to still get that level of steal rate, which is pretty impressive. Especially again, he was playing the 5. Like he was playing. I mean, he was in hedge. He was in all that stuff. He would trap some. Like he was a 5, and he was still able to do all those things. So yeah, I just think really good basketball player. Don't overthink the fact that he was the 6th man on Santa Clara. Like, just truthfully. Did he foul too much? Yeah, like that's going to be something he's got to figure out in the league. He's got to figure out his conditioning. He's actually very similar to Ade Mara in that they're both kind of like the concern for them is their shape in some ways, but the difference is in some ways, and again, I have Mara a spot higher. Like, I think Graves can lose weight and it will benefit him. Mara losing any weight is a concern. And so there's like, that's kind of the give and take with that. I think Graves will lose weight and it'll benefit him. Like, I think he probably should lose probably about 10 pounds or so in the league and be more of a real wing, to be able to sustain, push steps multiple times instead of just kind of, a couple here and there. The other thing I'll say, last thing is, this is kind of like if Coop was good. Like, I think that's probably the sell. This is the good, like, myself for Koa Pete is, he could be a wing if he makes shots, and I think he moves okay enough defensively to be a wing, and so that's your hope, is that he's actually more of like a wing forward than like an undersized big. I think Graves is the same way. He's kind of like a wing forward because he has this kind of weird quickness defensively, but he's quicker. He has more of a special defensive skill. The production matches the film a little bit more, and he's way closer as a shooter. Without the decision making being very far off. So I think Graves is awesome. This is one of those where I'm glad I aligned. I was kind of nervous, honestly, going into the film. I was like, am I gonna have to poo-poo the all the Graves hype that I've seen? But no, I felt like he lived up to it. And I honestly wonder if we're gonna be high end on him. I don't really know. But lottery feels right to me. Like this is a guy that I think we'll look back on in 10, 15 years and say, yep, he was a lottery value type guy, because he was just a positive on both ends of the floor. All right. Are you ready to move on?
Yes, I am. Do you think the next 4 people will take as long as Alan Graves?
It's a fun question. Well, the over under on the next 4 players taking less time like all combined than Alan Graves. My guess is Joshua Jefferson takes a little bit of time, and the last 3 really don't take any time.
Whenever you're ready.
Sweet. Okay. All right. It's been a long day, Coop.
But that's why we're here to get back to our bag.
Absolutely.
Embrace our inner child.
We got every time I'm on a podcast with you, I feel 18 again, Coop. All the whimsy of youth. I feel like if there's been a theme of this cycle, it's been that like we're old and jaded now. Like we talked so much about how like, yeah, back in the day we would have loved this guy. Back when we had joy in our heart, and a belief that basketball players could get better. Now we're so jaded. We're just like,
do I believe in development anymore? Fuck no.
I've been playing this 6 Rings game. I'm sure you've seen it. Well, maybe not. You're not on Twitter, but there's this game where you try to build a dynasty. This 6 Rings game.
Like I know 82-0. I got sent that the other day.
Now this is a better version of that because
okay.
Now listen, it uses LeBron and that's its only data point. So it's like, do I love single number metrics? No, but it tries to account for other things. It gives you like plus points for fit and plus points for certain things, offensive,
that's cool,
balance, and everything. It's a cool idea. And I've enjoyed it because I find it fun to go back and look and just feel like recognize which teams have just had like no good players. Like if you get the Wizards in that game, you basically have to, unless you get blessed with 97 Chris Webber, you basically have to click a different team because it's like, even like the guys you would think like they like won championships with like Wes Unseld, but it's like. The version of him in that game is not the version that's good. So, anyways, that's been the only thing getting me through today is playing that game in some of my free time. But anyways, all right. I think that's the place to start. I think Alan Graves is the most upside swings prospect that we've had in a minute. Like this is the Tar Eason of this class, or the Leonard Miller, or not that he's the same as those guys. But then
you're getting the it's like a like a shaking sound.
Oh, maybe I just need to like sit really still. Is it better now?
Yeah, I don't hear it now, but you were like, I just heard a little thumping.
Yeah, let me
Sorry to throw you off your rhythm. I just don't.
No, you're all good.